Okay, everybody, we're going to play a little bit of show and tell. We all remember what that is. So here are a few of my Conscious Company magazines. So I think what this might reveal is that I'm a bit of a selective hoarder, but this is how I came to know Meghan French Dunbar. So greetings, everyone. There you are. Greetings, everyone. I'm Rhonda Bannard with Earth Gives, and this is our Community Commons Changemakers Women Gathering. And we are so glad to have Meghan here with us to tell her story, to leave us with some inspiration. Before we do that, and before we have each of you introduce yourselves, I wanted to just offer a couple more things. So if you got the full email, you probably heard the story already that I was so wow when I got my first issue, and my card is still in there. And so it says, "Dear Rhonda, thank you for subscribing to Conscious Company. We truly appreciate your business and we hope you enjoy every issue. Sincerely, Maren, Meghan, and the CCM team." So I know that's probably like, oh my God, I can't believe anyone would keep that. But I think the power of notes and messages are huge. And that's why actually my wall is covered in card boxes, because I have built community through writing, handwriting notes and sending those during even the holidays. And I wanted to read just a little bit of your editorial statement in the opening of the magazine, and then have some folks introduce themselves. But I could read this whole thing, but it's so powerful. In this issue, we explore gender issues and the nuanced definition of leadership that is emerging in the workplace, predicated on a balance between the feminine and masculine. We found leaders in this new economy who are giving us reason to celebrate, women who are redefining banking, elevating architecture, single-handedly forcing the largest companies in the world to examine gender pay equity, and more. So this is a 2016 issue. And I feel like we're sort of still grappling with the same thing. And if we keep doing things the same way, do we end up in the same place? And I found it interesting when I pulled this one out. It's Kat Taylor. I actually met her here in Phoenix when she came to speak at Local First, and I know her husband who ran for president and did a few other things. So she's a total badass. So anyway, really powerful. You obviously had an impact on me, and I'm just thrilled that you're here. So why don't we introduce ourselves a little bit? Elizabeth, why don't you tell us where you are, a little bit about what you do, and a little bit about you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking up who Kat Taylor's husband was, just out of curiosity. But yeah, so
Tom Steyer.
I know I've actually met him when I was an intern in DC. But okay, anyways, my name is Elizabeth. I work at Bubbler Bikes, which is Milwaukee County's nonprofit bike share. So bike share is when you can check out a bike from one station, bike it to another, that kind of thing. Except most bike shares are owned by a big corporation. We're just 10 employees and we're a nonprofit. So yeah, I'm zooming in from Milwaukee where it's cold and it was 70 degrees yesterday. So I'm very excited to be here again. Thank you again for hosting this as always, Rhonda.
Absolutely. Colleen.
Hi, Colleen Brady. I am with the Arizona Media Association and the Arizona Local News Foundation. I'm the VP of Development. Kind of my background, I just actually started there probably about 2 months ago. And prior to that, I've been in the newspaper industry. So pretty much I've worked for newspapers in Arizona and the Midwest. And my last gig was in Flagstaff as publisher for, I was there for 8 years for the newspaper there. So
Fantastic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Stewart. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas. I met Rhonda at South by Southwest last year. Happy to have been in the know about this group. This is my second time being here, and I'm really happy to be here. I've actually been teaching small and mid-sized companies how to run a better business, about value growth, teaching and training company wide. I've been doing that for 22 years. I started a company, an IP company. I grew it to 9 locations in the US and 1 in Sydney, Australia. It changed the business. I was no longer able to have any time to like work with the clients, which is what I really love to do. And then I got divorced, and it's like those kinds of things was like, I'm stripping this thing back down to the basics. And so, and then COVID happened, and I went back to school, to the online program for sustainable leadership for the University of Cambridge. One of my clients that had to furlough everyone, during lockdown, of course, they let me go as well, but I knew that they were very interested in sustainability and carbon footprinting. And so I said, hey, everybody in this program is hired by like they're employed by a large corporation, for them to be doing sustainability in that company. So their project on the course is that company, but I don't have that. So I said, if you will foot the bill for me to go through this program, I'll do it all on your company. And so that's how I got it paid for, because I'd lost so much business because of the pandemic. So that was the beginning of my pathway to including sustainability. And so now I have an online training platform for small local startups that are wanting to, a lot of young people starting businesses today want to start sustainably. And so I'm able now to marry both and teach how to start and run a business and do it sustainably. And then I'm also, for larger companies, I'm doing carbon footprinting and outsource sustainability. So that's what I'm doing, and really trying to grow all of that, but finding in the small business marketplace, not a lot of businesses are really looking for this yet. So finding a group of change makers that are like, we can all pat each other on the back, like that's why I'm here. So I'm excited to hear you talk about the magazine, and just to learn about all the stuff, amazing things that you've done.
And she's also writing a book about women in business. So there's a perfect connection there, Sandy. Fireflies, are you just taking minutes? Is there anyone behind there that wants to say anything? I think they're just taking notes, but Megan, it's your turn. You're up.
Oh, well, yeah, like Rhonda, first, thanks so much for inviting me. I guess before I kind of jump into the storytelling component, it would be helpful for me to understand what's the value that you're hoping to get out of being here today? What are you most interested in? We'll definitely have time for like Q&A of stuff, and I can orient my discussion of my journey a bit around things that are most interesting to you, if there's stuff that you all have top of mind right now.
I mean, I'll say what I'm hoping to get out of it is, just with where I am in my business, and, my drive is a lot, my drive and determination is what gets me up in the morning. And, even though it's like, it's a struggle. It's a struggle finding businesses that, small businesses they think that the only thing they can do is something really big and massive and expensive. And so then they don't do anything. And so I continue to try to get the message out that like, there's 100 things you could do today that don't actually cost money or time really, and it's a mindset. And so that's the biggest message I try to get out there, because they don't have a budget for this. They've never had a budget for this. So having them to try to put that into their financial model is really difficult. And they don't have someone, if they do decide to go down this path, they're deputizing an existing manager that they already know and love and trust, but that person doesn't have any background in this either. So, really, I think for me is just learning. I want to learn more about your path, and also the magazine itself. And maybe even suggestions you might have for potentially all of us of like, where can we find these, larger circles of how we can really support each other and spread. I mean, we're all here for this greater common good, doing it in different ways, but it's like, how do we help each other to make it grow faster for everyone.
Okay. Anything else before Colleen or Elizabeth?
And
I can-
any other magic wands you can come up with.
I don't have any of those.
Colleen?
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way as Sandy, you know, talking to the different organizations that I'm talking to about helping journalism. You know, it's getting the story across, and some days are really good, some days it kind of falls on deaf ears. So it's really understanding too that path to success of trying to talk to people about why what you're working on, why it's so important, and continuing to have that passion every day.
Elizabeth, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just graduated with a PR degree in May, so I think learning about kind of how advertorials can help a sustainable business would be cool. But I'm honestly here just to feel inspired. So yeah, I'm very excited to hear what you have to say.
All right. I'll try to weave some of this stuff in. Some of it
And
I just don't know.
I think, Megan, that it's interesting the transitions you've been to and what you learned when you know, sold the magazine and stepped away and now are on a different journey. It's because, you know, when things are in hindsight, that's when we get some clarity. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit about what I'm curious for.
That one I know. That one I gotcha. Okay. So I guess Rhonda, I'll just like tell a story of holy. I'll do the first parts very quick because this is interesting because I'm writing a book, so all of this is very top of mind, and I'm finding the most salient parts of my story and how they're all coming back 20 years later. So in undergrad, I decided to study English and journalism, despite everyone telling me that they were totally not practical and I should study something else. I literally had a Colleen, when you say you're working in newspapers, we had a editor at the Denver Post who was in my journalism school, my last semester senior year, and she told all of us we'd made a huge mistake studying journalism because print was dead, and like we were all headed out into the Wild West and we were all screwed. And I was like, okay, great. So I took her advice to heart. I promise it's going to go faster. We're not going to go in depth of every single part. Went into the nonprofit world, worked at the Environmental Defense Fund for a while. They have a corporate partnerships program. And it was one of the first times where I saw the marriage of sustainability and business. They were essentially figuring out incentive-based structures to get business to actually give a shit about sustainability. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. And so I wanted to study sustainable business. That became the thing that I just was on fire about. At the time, when I looked at MBA programs to do that, there was only one in the United States that had a sustainable management program, and it was a brand new school called Presidio Graduate School. So my ego was like, I want to go to a big name, reputable school. And my heart was like, we want to do sustainable business. So I stuck with the heart-based track, went to Presidio Graduate School, got an MBA in sustainability, jumped out of that, started working in the impact investing field for a hot minute, was like, I don't think capital markets are my jam. At the same time, I very randomly came full circle on my journalism degree, met a woman in Boulder who offered me the role of managing editor of 2 of her print magazines based here in Boulder. And I was like, well, I guess like I have zero idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to say yes and figure it out. Jumped into that. And one evening, like 5 months into it, it's a very toxic work environment. Like things were not going very well. Like Friday night, 5:30, and I'm going to dinner with a friend, and my phone starts ringing. It's my boss. I haven't heard from her all day. It's 5:30 on a Friday. I'm like, screw it. I turn my phone off and have dinner with my friend. And during that dinner, my friend asks me, you work in magazines. Like, why doesn't a print magazine exist about sustainable business? Like, why are all of the business magazines out there, like Forbes and Fortune, and just glorifying and deifying money and wealth? And the only thing that they're talking about is how to achieve more revenue. And I was like, something has to exist. So we went back to my house. We Googled all the things and we couldn't find a magazine like this. And so it was like one of those things where I went to bed and I was like, mortified that would be. As I was going to bed, I turned my phone back on and had like 60 missed text messages from my boss. She was like very angry. I woke up the next day and I'd been fired. She fired me via email at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was like that life moment. We have these like turning points in our life where a door opens and like you're like, is it insane to walk through? Like, I think it might be, but I feel like I have to. Literally looked at my husband and I said, I think the universe is telling me I'm supposed to launch a print magazine about sustainable business. Like, why else would this have happened within a 24-hour period? We didn't have kids at the time. I was 29. And my husband was like, do it. Like, let's do it. So we crowdfunded, did the whole thing. I can get into the like how we started, but I think a few salient points in that are: one, no one like gave me permission to do it. And I realized like, oh yeah, you just give yourself permission to do it and you just believe that you can. And holy moly, I just get to like do whatever I want, which was super weird for me as a high achieving, like detail oriented, must have the path completely put in front of me sort of person. Two, we made a list of all like our top 20 biggest name people that we are like, these are our sustainability titans. Let's just email them and see if they'll be in the first magazine. I think 18 out of the 20 said yes, including John Mackey, the co-founder of Whole Foods, who we put on the cover. Strategy, because then when they took our new magazine out to like figure out who was going to distribute it, when we went to Whole Foods, we had the freaking co-founder of the company on the cover. So they said yes. So we got into every single Whole Foods market in the world with our first issue. And so, I mean, we'd raised $20,000 on a crowdfunding campaign. We had enough money to design, print, and get the first issue out. And then it like went out and like the train left the station and I didn't even know what we were doing. Like it was just a full-on duct tape and glue, like keep it together, building the plane as you're taking off sort of moment. The first year, we are a quarterly print magazine. You know, we have to get a new magazine out every 3 months. And we have like a zero revenue base. And we just like begged, borrowed, stole, like did whatever we could to keep it afloat. Of course, not paying ourselves, like taking every personal credit card to our name and splitting up the print bill, like just trying to do whatever we could to get it. But we somehow managed to get through an entire first year. And with being at every Whole Foods, it like started building notoriety. We did a seed round. We did an investment round. We brought in $700,000 of investment from 21 kind of impact investor angels. Built the company. Yeah, of course, print magazines, there isn't really a business there any longer. So we launched events, which became a really good like revenue generating component. So we had the Conscious Company Leaders Forum, which is where kind of co-ed, anyone could come, focusing specifically on mission driven businesses. We brought in some of the coolest speakers that we could find from around the world. And then getting the timeline right. So we were doing really well. And then for all sorts of reasons that I can get into, like the summer of 2016, like we were blowing through our investment round faster than we wanted to. Like some of our revenue strategies weren't paying off, and it was the most extraordinarily stressful time in my entire life. Like looking at my team, we had 8 employees, their kids' health insurance was based on us. We had all these investors, all of the things. It was all on my shoulders as CEO. And I was like just depressed, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed. I woke up, the first thing I thought about was business. It was the last thing I thought about going to bed. I was like completely consumed. I was obsessed with the business, like to the detriment of my family, didn't see my friends, the whole thing. We weren't doing very well as a leadership team. We brought on a male business partner, and the 3 of us are trying to figure things out, and was like getting to the point where I was having panic attacks and full bore, like just burnout. And after one of my like very sincere panic attacks, my husband said, like, this, nothing is worth this. Like absolutely nothing is worth this. So I guess this was in 2017. And so he said, like, how can we not, how can we make this better? And our options were, we go for another investment round, which the stress of going out and trying to raise a Series A was bonkers, or we sell the company. So we actually ended up finding a buyer. We sold the company in December of 2017 to a kind of parent company based in New York that was starting to buy up lots of smaller media event-based companies in the social impact space. Right around that same time as we were like kind of selling the company, doing all these things, I looked at my husband one night. I was like sitting on the floor of our bedroom and feeling so frustrated that I couldn't find another female founder to talk to about all the like sales stuff and term sheets and all the things that I should be thinking about with the sale of the company. And I said, like, I just wish that we had a community of extraordinarily badass world-changing women that we could come together and talk. And I like a bolt of lightning out of the sky had this idea for world-changing women. I was like, oh my God, I like saw this conference and this podcast and this whole thing. And I ran to the guest room and like sketched it all out. So when we sold the company, that was like one of the first things I brought to our parent company because they wanted to keep me on as CEO. My other business partners exited, so I remained CEO of a wholly owned subsidiary brand under this parent company, but we pretty much operated relatively independently. So I said, I have this idea for World Changing Women, which they greenlighted. They were super excited about. We launched our first event in January of 2018, and that was like the balm to my soul. It was just the best, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Had these events with, hundreds of women, Eileen Fisher, like Jane Werwand of Dermalogica, like all these extraordinary women coming in and just being like in a room with 200 extraordinary women who weren't there to talk about like their executive presence and climbing the ladder. They were there to talk about like, how do you make positive change with your business? And they're just the like sisterhood of that. We built a whole community around that. That was our largest revenue generating, but it was also like the passion project. Like it was the thing that my entire team loved. Um, and our parent company, as we were growing and scaling, they did the same thing that every kind of traditional business does. They wanted to do more with less. And so they started cutting headcount, letting employees go, asked me to remove some people from my team. And then, we needed to grow by 20% and have 30% less of a team. And we got kind of back into the cycle of just pure stress and overwhelm. And at the same time, I got pregnant with my first son, our first child. So when I came back from maternity leave, like very quickly, oh, that's a fun place for my face to freeze. I came back from maternity leave and like they were like, you need to be on a plane immediately. Like we need to be traveling. There's like all these, we have to get your next event up and going within the next 2 months. And I like just didn't have any gas left in the tank. Like, and I knew it. And I looked at my team and was like, they deserve so much more than this. The company deserves more than this. Our readers, our community deserves more than the leadership that I have to give right now. So we did our final World Changing Women's Summit on the last day of January 2020. February 1st, I resigned. March 13th was my last day. March 17th, we went into lockdown and I had a 9-month-old son. And so that was like full-time, from going from like full-time CEO on the stage, getting standing ovations, getting invited to big name conferences. I'm like this big player. My ego is feeling great, like constant external validation. There's the achievement addiction. And then you go into COVID and I have a baby and I'm a great mom. I am not a great full-time mom. And like, I just like muscled through, but like within a few months, I was just like at the lowest of the low. I was extraordinarily depressed. And started working with a therapist for the first time in my life, and she helped me understand my like achievement addiction. Like I've been a high achiever my whole life, like blue ribbons and captain of the soccer team, captain of the basketball team, student senate, like MVP, captain, like all the things, like my whole identity, my whole life, like achievement was the way that I was like, oh, this is how I'm valuable and worthy of love. So I achieve, and then I get external validation. I feel really good, and it lasts for a little bit, and then I have to achieve the next thing. And And that's just like the cycle that I was on, that lots of kind of overachieving women get on. And then with COVID, it was like completely like I didn't have any opportunity to achieve. Like I couldn't do anything. I could just be a mom. And so like as my son was sleeping, I was like putting together online courses and writing blogs and like trying to, looking at how many people read my last thing and if anyone signed up for my course. And like I was like frantically just like trying to feed the achievement addiction and I couldn't. And so I finally worked with a therapist and she was like, so like maybe you could try like intrinsic motivation instead of extrinsic motivation. And like, what if you like started working on your health and healing all of your trauma? And we imagined a world in which you're inherently worthy just as you are. Like, and I was like, this, like, does not compute. Like, I can't even, like, I was so, but I just continued to work with Lynn, who I work with to this day, my extraordinary therapist, and got pregnant with our second child, went on bed rest for a while. It was super fun. And while I was on bed rest, started researching a kind of obsession that I had had, which was I had met women on my journey who were not struggling. My typically kind of high achieving women, the women that I'm bringing to my conferences, speakers, my podcast guests, all the people I'm interviewing for the magazine, when you get them behind closed doors, it's just the same conversation. Like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, I'm so stressed. Oh my God, I have to do that. And they're like playing the double hero. They're like holding all the things at work, but then they're also the hero at home and they're taking care of everything. And like, it's just this like constant stress, anxiety, depletion, awful, mental health crises, physical health crises. Like one of my friends had an undiagnosed issue. She was a CEO of a small social impact organization. He had undiagnosed issue that sporadically paralyzed both of her legs caused by stress. And like I kept hearing all these stories, this like 95% of the stories. And then there's like a 5% of women that I'd met, like Susan Griffin Black. She's the co-CEO, co-founder of EO products, like EO hand soaps and lotions and all the things. I mean, they're a $500 million company. I met Susan and she's just like floating on a freaking cloud. She's like Zen. She's so calm. And I'm just like this, like she's not normal. And then I'd meet like Eileen Fisher, it was the same thing. Akaya Windwood, Alpha Demolash. Like there was these women I was meeting and I was like, they're doing something different than all of the rest of us. And I don't know what it is. So when I got pregnant with our second kid and I was put on bed rest, I just like went into like a entrepreneur ADD psychosis and just started researching all of the things that could possibly be happening as to why these women were different than all of the rest of us. Went down a super deep, dark, wonderful hole around patriarchy and the history of capitalism and, all of the systemic problems of the world, reviewed all my interviews from the past. And I realized like, oh, business is terrible. It's making all of us incredibly stressed and anxious and depressed with the way that it's designed. And these happy women over here have just decided to say like, no, I'm not using the traditional playbook. I'm doing business entirely in my own way. I like how I want to show up, values, purpose, intrinsic motivation, collaboration, mutual wealth creation. Like it was like, they were just like, I refuse to let the best parts of me be compromised. And because I want to be a successful business person, I'm going to like be the best version of myself and run a business. And all of them were running very successful businesses. So I went down this just gigantic research project of why and all the things, and it came out with a book proposal around kind of the new playbook that these women are using. So using that research, my friend Jocelyn and I, she and I co-hosted World Changing Women together. She and I started hosting kind of corporate workshops and women's retreats and all sorts of wonderful things where we got to go and talk to women about kind of some of these new ideas. The last one we did was in 2023 at Leonard Green, which is a private equity company, 100 of their women. So they had all the women executives from Leonard Green, all of the women investors in Leonard Green, and all of the women executives at the portfolio companies that Leonard Green invests in. And we walked in there talking about toxic masculinity and patriarchy and the systemic issues of capitalism. And one, they were not expecting that. Two, multiple women were sobbing, coming up to us saying that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I've never resonated so much with something. Oh my God. I've always thought it was me that's the problem. It's business that's the problem. And we're like, okay, I think we're on to something here. So Jocelyn and I do that. We under the banner Women Led is our little company that we run. We do the workshops and host all these wonderful things. We're putting things on hold until I get my book done because I got a book deal with Hachette Book Group in September 2023. So I'm working with them right now furiously on this first book, kind of detailing the new healthy, wonderful playbook. And then I have another small company
I
called
mean, it's
Stakeholder
not
Business.
called Lean In.
It is not. One of the ways that I've been describing it to people is it's kind of like lean out. It's like, how do you succeed in business by doing everything differently than lean in told us to do? But then I do work with 2 men on a business called Stakeholder Business, and we have a CEO community that is for CEOs of purpose-driven companies. It's like kind of like YPO or EO, a membership-based community where they come together. One of the really fun things that we do is every 4 months we go and do a deep dive workshop or a deep dive retreat, a 3-day retreat at some of the most game-changing companies in the country. Rhonda, we were actually just down in Phoenix visiting the Perryville Women's Prison 2 weeks ago with 10 CEOs with the company Televerde, which works with the incarcerated women.
I know all about them.
Yeah, but yeah, we got to go into the women's prison and was like one of the most life-changing moments I've ever had in terms of just changing my perspective. And so we're kind of doing these like learning journey field trips with CEOs around the country, which is really fun. So yeah, I'm got my 2 little businesses that we do. I'm working on my first book around women, and I've got a 2-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. And trying to like reestablish the second act divorced from the harmful beliefs that I previously hosted, and really trying to like enter into this with boundaries and an understanding of my own health and well-being, and not attaching my self-worth to the success of my companies. Those sorts of things that often aren't talked about, but are some of the most kind of harmful things that we do when we're working. So I currently work 8:30 to 2:30 every day, 2:30 to 3:30. I go and exercise or take time for myself. I hang out with my kids starting at 3:30. I don't work nights. I don't work weekends. I say no to a lot of things. And I'm feeling for the first time in my life, like very happy and fulfilled, not because of what I'm doing, but because of how I'm doing it. So that was I was gonna say quick and dirty, but it wasn't quick at all. That's the long and dirty version of the how I am sitting right now talking to you story.
See how amazing it is to have her? Megan, wow. I knew that there was some stress in there, and as we all can imagine in our own lives, what's going on. So what comes up for people? What piece of something that she shared that you have a question about?
Oh, Sandy, do you want to go or do you want me to go? Okay. So I am like in awe of your entire journey. I could ask a million questions, I feel like. I guess what I've been struggling with my like I guess whole life and right now is definitely like the achievement addiction and coming out of that. Like I just graduated from college and like I don't know, my whole like life experience is like being an honor student and like having internships and like all this stuff. And now I'm 23 and I know you can't see, but my hair is like half gray and I am like a stress ball all the time now. And I love my job. It's great. It is a nonprofit though. So it's like, you know, you're constantly just like throwing darts and see where they land and like hoping for money from people. So I guess I see myself like in you, I guess, in a lot of ways from what you've been saying. Now that you are kind of, I don't want to say like on the other side of this because like life is a process and like as you said, like it ebbs and flows. What advice would you give like your 23-year-old self who's like an achievement addict, who is like struggling with this world? I guess because I just like see a lot of similarities, even in, like the way you were speaking and like how I speak. So
Yes,
what,
yes, 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 yes.
in terms of like managing your stress and your like mental well-being in this like very purpose-driven work environment, like what advice do you have for that?
Yes, 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 yes. Well, Elizabeth, I quite literally have just been working on these like entire chapters, so this is so top of mind. But one of the big things that I have been focusing on that's been really helpful for me is understanding the difference between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation, achievements, awards, salaries, titles, it's like all the things that feed your ego. And they are the things that we prioritize for our young. It's how we raise our children, especially the millennial Gen Z group who are growing up with these like hovering helicopter parents. And it has become so competitive. It is all about getting into the schools and doing the things. And like it is that. And so the intrinsic motivation, and there is so much research about this, like extrinsic motivation, one of the bonkers things about it is when the same chemical reaction that happens in your brain when you're receiving an award or recognition is the exact same thing, chemical process that happens in your brain for a person who's addicted to drugs when they're about to take a hit. Achievement is addicting. It is a dopamine. We need it. And once we get it, we feel good for a bit, but then we need it again. And then we need it in higher doses. And it just like continues. And it is an addiction cycle that does not lead to lasting contentment. And so there's like all these extraordinary studies on people who have extrinsic motivation as kind of their markers of success versus intrinsic motivation. The ones with extrinsic motivation, depression, anxiety, suicide, overwhelm. Like there's never a place to stop. There's never contentment. There's never a sense of fulfillment. Intrinsic motivation, they either have increased life satisfaction as they go along, or they kind of stay the same, but they have longer life cycles, better mental health. Like everything is going better over here for the intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation, the three big ones are having meaning and purpose, which is like, it seems like everyone on the call like that is a thing, but like there's kind of, I've been kind of bifurcating it into like general meaning and purpose of like doing good and writing cards and like there's like like helping people, making introductions, like reaching out to someone and telling them that you appreciate, like there's just like the general like that felt meaningful and it felt great. And then there's also like your purpose, like what's the thing that you feel you are inherently like, what are you just fired up passionate about? And there's also this kind of idea that you have a singular purpose and it stays with you your whole life and it's your one true calling. And like that is also bullshit. It might be for some people. And most people I've talked to, their purpose kind of ebbs and flows and changes, and you can become interested in entirely different things. So they're like, oh my God, I'm going so far down this rabbit hole. I promise I'm not going to, oh, I just want to talk forever. What's the most important? So in like finding your own purpose thing, there is an element of the thing that like lights you on fire. Mine is very much trying to inspire people around conversations of shifting from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. I think kind of shareholder capitalism, profit maximization, profit at all cost is like the root cause of the majority of the issues on the face of the fucking planet. Sorry. And a stakeholder approach of benefiting all is like, if we can shift business, we can change the entire world. And so like that feels like my purpose. How I do that, I'm agnostic about the how. Magazines, podcasts, events, books, talking, speaking, like there's so many different ways to engage with like your purpose, like getting pigeonholed and feeling like oh, well, I studied PR, so like I need to do PR. Like broaden your scope of how you could tackle the things you're passionate about. Follow your heart, follow your gut. Even if you have no idea where it is taking you, follow the intuition. And like I was just talking to Jane Warwan. She's the co-founder, or she's co-founder and chief visionary of Dermalogica Skincare. They were acquired by Unilever for like $1 billion. She is unbelievable. She's so much fun. And she said that her journey and that was her biggest recommendation for people is to connect the dots. Do not imagine a vision, like a picture of exactly what you want. Follow your heart and your gut and your intuition based on what is pulling you. And that takes you to your next dot, which takes you to your next dot, which takes you to your next dot. And then it's only through following that journey that you actually connect the dots and you get to a final vision of a picture, but you might have no idea where it's taking you. And like the millennial generation and Gen Z, we've been told like one path, picture, vision, like there's like you must stay on path. Once you get into industry, do not go off the rails, ascend, it is assistant, associate, director, manager, like you're just, but it's like everyone who I've talked to who's just thrilled and tickled and happy with their life has followed the path of just like what lights them up, what their interests are. They've gone all the way up to a manager and started all the way back down as an intern in an entirely different industry. Like it's been what I call the non-linear path based on passion and interest, which goes to the second intrinsic motivation point, which is growth and mastery. Like your life is there to make you the most expansive, multi-dimensional version of yourself. Like anything that helps you grow and learn and have new experiences, that's the rich stuff that like leads to general lasting contentment. And the more you learn and grow and have different experiences, even if they like technically feel like they're failures, I have failed more times than I care to count, hence getting fired from the magazine. I'd been there for 5 months. I got fired, but it gave me enough knowledge to be able to launch my own magazine. Like every single thing that you do that's new, it's just experiences. And the more of them you have, the more things that you learn to be able to do later things in your life. And the third part is autonomy, which is your ability to have freedom of choice. And there's different types of autonomy. There's autonomy of time. So actually being able to choose what you do with your waking hours of your day, which is why flexible working hours, 4-day work weeks, the things in which we're figuring out like, oh, if we give people more free time, they're actually more productive instead of chaining them to their desks. But then there's also autonomy of voice, of choice. How much ability do you have to say with your employer, people you're working with, do they care about your opinion? Do you get to have say on major decisions for the company? Do they have open book management? Are the leaders of the company actually talking to everyone? Is it collaborative? Like all of those things, your ability to have voice and choice in what you work on, what the organization does, all of those 3 things, purpose, growth, and autonomy are like the 3 key, but then there's also, Rhonda, to what you pretty much do in life, connection. Like deep, profound, meaningful connection, especially if your connection and you're working in collaboration with people on a shared vision or goal. Like those are the things that bring tremendous health and wealth and richness to life that lead to lasting contentment. So like that for me is where I am focusing all of my time and attention on and trying to like let go of the extrinsic motivation, but like they still feel good. I'm not gonna lie. Like I want my book to sell well. I would like it to be a bestseller. That would be really nice. And I want it to be a bestseller because I feel like it can have significant impact and because of all the opportunity and the cool shit that I would get to do with my life if I had increased experiences as a result of it selling well. So I'm trying to continue to like marry intrinsic and extrinsic when I feel the extrinsic pull. That was a lot.
I wanted to reinforce something that you said, especially for people like Elizabeth, because I may be a bit more seasoned than all of you on this. And so that one purpose, I think it's fascinating. You see all the, come learn your purpose and find your purpose. And, I've had to reflect on a lot of things and I've done a lot of things. And I think my journalism background set me up to connect dots because I pay attention to a lot of incoming and you just then end up doing that naturally, and then you connect dots, and it's like, how do other people not see that? So I see it as a superpower, but it's also a challenge because most people don't see it. I'm like, so you tend to see things before people, and you got to wait till they catch up or not, and just trailblaze. But the thread that I pulled on my life when I looked back was that of connection. So you said that, and my consulting company has been called Inspire Connections for the last 20 years, because that is the value. That's when I feel joy, when I see, a woman on stage who I nominated for a big award being celebrated because she received it, and just that kind of energy. So I like that. And in the PR world, a lot, what you do, Elizabeth, is you're the one telling other people what to say. You're writing their stories, and it's kind of a weird dynamic. Same in journalism, you're telling other people's stories, you're not the story. But what I've seen, and now that I've kicked off, Earth Gives to transform and get more people involved in climate and environmental philanthropy and action, is that very thing that you're saying, Meghan, is what I'm really trying to do is just build a caring community of people who feel drawn to be part of the solution. And so how do you do that? And it's a big, audacious goal, and yet I don't know how else we do that. And I see that point reinforced, and a lot of very wise people out there saying we have to go together. There is no one solution. So I wanted to pick on a little bit of something you say, business needs to transform. I just got done going to Green Biz here, it was hosted here in Phoenix, and it was fascinating sitting and listening to corporations talking about all the headwinds that they face in ESGs or sustainability, or trying to advance things in their companies. And I was thinking, and I even had this conversation with some folks about, well, if legal is an issue and engineering or marketing is an issue, why are they not here? Why are you here talking in a silo, of sustainability pros versus how do we expand our thinking to drive those solutions? So they're not going to solve it, but we have to solve it together, because individuals make up businesses, individuals make up our government. It's not like this other thing out there, it is us. And so how do we see kind of us and humanity at the center of it all? So I don't know if that helped on anything, but
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if anybody else had a question.
Well, I had that, you just said a word that I forgot, and I want to make sure that I underline, highlight, exclamation point, which is joy. You said this, like, I feel so much joy when, and there's like, again, a narrative that like, oh, well, work is work, and like work isn't supposed to be fun, and I'm not supposed to enjoy work. Like, those who have relentlessly pursued and not settled for things that don't bring them joy, like, I love hosting events. I love hosting small retreats. Like, it makes me happy. Like, that sweet spot of like my meaning and my purpose, but also things that I'm good at and I love to do, is like finding that and continuing to pursue it and changing things until you find it is huge. But also, like, Elizabeth, like when you're like, I have gray hair, like, the thing that I have been trying to do more than anything is just remember that it's not so serious. Like, hold life with levity, tap into joy, play, like, just like having fun. Like, I like make time to enjoy, like have joy in my life right now. And that was not something that I had ever done before, because I was so like achievement addiction, but also like stressed about the world's problems. So like, as much as you can hold it with levity and joy, that's another thing. And with our whopping 3 minutes, Colleen, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Colleen. Sandy, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry. It took me a second to get unmuted. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of this with us. I relate so much to your story in so many different ways, even though my story, for myself, like the points are different, like contextually, it's very much the same. And I kind of feel attacked with the words achievement addiction. I also felt that, and for a big chunk of my previous business life before the pandemic, I was, married, and we were a big deal. Like, we were on stage together. Like, I really got a lot of that. He was also major covert narcissist, and so he kept me in a real confused state all the time. And I was like panic level stress like 24/7, and I started to drink because I kept thinking if I could have a drink, I could calm my heart down. That was the only way I saw to like get out, and that led to a lot of problems. I'm now 7.5 years sober, and thank you, and that has been life changing, and I've learned a lot about being present, saying no to things, so in a very different way, I've kind of come to the same space of, I also no longer work nights and weekends. Like, I'm much more like present in my day-to-day life. But the one thing that you really talked about, and this is what I've really been struggling with and really didn't see it until you just put words to it, is that like I'm operating out of this old framework of what business needs to look like. And I mean, I teach business, but I feel so it's like I have my mission and my drive and my purpose. Like, when I realized my purpose, I realized it doesn't matter what work I'm doing. Like, if I am whole and intact and, spiritually strong, and that's when I can live my purpose. So whatever I need to do, as long as the things in my life, the work I'm doing, the people I'm with, as long as that stuff is feeding me, then I can be in that purposeful space. So I just can't get into stuff that's going to like drag me down or cause that kind of shitstorm of stress that I had before. And so it's really inspiring. I cannot wait for your book. I feel like it's like it's opened up this idea of like, what is it in the sphere of what I'm trying to do that I'm trying to shoehorn things into this old way of business that maybe I don't have to do that. I feel like you've just given me permission to knock it on its head, and I don't know what that looks like. I kind of want you just to give me the answer.
Look at oh my God, I froze like that. Well, I have all the answers to how to make, no, I have so many ideas, and will send you as many as I can. But yeah, it's, my heart feels full just hearing that, to know that like what I'm sitting here in my bedroom toiling away on is resonating with people.
Yeah, I think this
Totally.
is a really, I think a lot of women talk about like, gosh, we would do things so differently. And one of the things I've always taught in business is business doesn't, old school sales was always based in fear, right? And they say it's old school sales because that's when it got created in the 50s, but like it's still being taught. That fear-based selling is still being taught today. And that's one of the things that like I don't, everything that I teach is based on love, not fear. I think of business as a living, breathing organism, just like a person or a tree or an animal. Like, it's not this, here's a bunch of tasks of things that need to get done to make the business run. Like, there's people involved, so heart has to be at the heart of all of it. And I feel like women tend to naturally do that more, even though they don't necessarily realize it. But I think this is a really important message. And I think you giving permission like just what I received. I just think that permission to like, we're all trying to fit into like what a bunch of white dudes in the 50s all came up with what business needed to look like. And it doesn't have to look like that anymore. So thank you.
Thanks, Megan. It has been, wow, a powerful hour, and I want to respect everybody's time, but you've also recruited several future readers. And my bet, since Sandy's reminding me about South by Southwest, maybe you should be a presenter, apply to be a presenter in 2025 to talk about your initiative. That would be a really cool launching pad, or come to Green Biz, as it were. Anyway, thank you so much for all that you do. We're thrilled that you made it through all those challenges and that you were willing to share your wisdom and lessons with a very small but thankful group for you to join us. So,
Thank you.
any final thoughts?
Can I just say, I literally needed to hear everything you said so badly. Like, you have no idea.
Yay!
I'm like, I
Good.
took so many notes. I'm gonna like journal tonight about this. Like, seriously, like, I know there's only like 2 of us here still, but like, I'm taking this to heart, and I can't wait to read your book. Seriously, like,
Aw.
I've been in a funk recently, so like, seeing you like be so awesome, and like seeing a lot of my own like, I don't know, like habits reflected in like your younger self. Like seriously, like I mean this with like all sincerity. I like needed to hear this. So thank you so much.
I have goosebumps. Thank you.
Oh yeah, like
Ah,
it's honesty. Like yeah.
thanks. I have nothing else to say. That was the best way to end this whole thing. So.
Okay.
When
Well,
are you
great.
expecting the book to come out?
I have to get it done, and then once it's done, it's 10 to 12 months until it's on shelf. So
So maybe next year.
probably summer of 2025.
Okay.
Be a
But
good beach read.
yeah,
Perfect.
I'm trying. I'm going as fast as I can.
If you need
Thank
any
you, every-
volunteers along the way.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Don't
much
be
for being here. Thank you,
strangers.
Rhonda, for putting this together again.
Yes, no problem.
Bye.
See you next month.